Robert, as of this month, you are dismissed. You were so close to retiring, so it's unfortunate, isn't it? I accepted the slip of paper from manager Sarah, completely bewildered. The document bore the president's seal firmly stamped on it and read dismissal notice in huge letters. She started bragging, "Why?" when I asked her why. "Naturally, due to your complete incompetence. After consulting with the president about the previous occurrences and your actions, even though he appeared a little unhappy, he decided to fire you." I hung my head in amazement as I glanced at the notice of dismissal. "I'm finally relieved to get rid of a useless person like you," she said. "Starting today, I've made arrangements for you to use the remaining vacation days, so get your belongings and head out. The company is ruined by incompetence." I started to release all the tensions I had been holding inside at that very moment. Comprehensive. Then, I'm going to leave. Thank you for the lesson, and bye for now. I then started packing my belongings rapidly in front of manager Sarah. I promised to get revenge in private when I got home. Robert Johnson, I'm 62 years old. I'm currently employed at Fine Beverage Co., a small beverage firm, as a section chief in the sales department. I've been apathetic toward most things since I was a little child, cruising through life without enthusiasm. On the suggestion of my parents, I attended lessons at a nearby university during my school years and then returned home for 4 years without becoming involved in any clubs. I didn't have a specific position in mind when I started my job search, so I applied to any company that attracted my attention and eventually heard from one of them with a job offer. I'm still employed at Fine Beverage Co., which was that company. I was placed in the sales department when I first joined the company after graduating from college, where I picked up skills from my more experienced colleagues. I was first very eager to learn the job and got dissatisfied with it every day because it involved a lot of boring work. But as I grew accustomed to the work, I felt a spark that I had never felt before, and I started to take an active part in my tasks. I earned my colleagues' trust by going out of my way to visit numerous businesses and meticulously finishing administrative work. As a result, I continuously ranked at the top of my sales performance. When I realized that this spark was really a sense of contentment, I became incredibly engaged in my profession and eagerly anticipated arriving at the office each morning, savoring every moment. I finally gained the respect of my peers and juniors as a talented worker as I kept up my good work, and I received praise from my bosses. I married a woman I worked with a few years later, and the following year our son David was born. I had gone from being apathetic toward most things to being able to find happiness and fulfillment at work and at home. I made the decision to put in a lot of effort to pay Fine Beverage Co. back for everything it had done for me, as I felt that the company was the reason I was happy. After many years, I am finally in charge of the sales department as section chief, working with my superiors and taking pleasure in my work. My love of work has inspired my son David, who has developed into a respectable adult and started his own business. Even after Johnson Holdings, a big beverage maker and David's competitor, completely acquired Fine Beverage Co. and turned it into a subsidiary, I persisted in my efforts, determined to keep up with David. I set daily goals for myself, intending to make the most of my work till retirement. A new manager was brought in from another company a few days after the manager of the sales department retired. Sarah Brown was her name, and she was regarded as a very good and competent woman. She was stunning, but she had a reputation for being severe at work. If someone made even the smallest error, she would scream at them. Her previous employer referred to her as the Demon Lady Manager, so we listened to her greeting with trepidation. Everyone started working after her introduction and the conclusion of the morning meeting. I started getting concerned as manager Sarah abruptly stopped me as I was getting ready for my sales rounds. "I take it you're Robert, the head of the section. It's good to meet you." She surprised me by speaking to me nicely, and I reciprocated with a "nice to meet you too," feeling a little relieved. "Please inquire if you need anything at all." But her smile faded soon, and she furrowed her brows in displeasure. "What, from you?" "Not at all. Robert, I wouldn't bother seeking advice from an expert like you. And at your age, still serving as section chief, you have to be incredibly inept. Act less haughty and powerful." Manager Sarah seemed irritated and turned back to her desk after that. When I first met her, I was astounded by her contempt. But I got myself together fast, wrapped up my sales preparations, and left, attempting to put the situation behind me. Manager Sarah was working as if nothing had happened when I came back to the office in the afternoon. She did not even give me a sidelong glance. Although I was happy that I hadn't offended her, it appeared that she had been observing me in private. Manager Sarah started to look down on me every time she saw me, even though I was just going about my business as usual after that. "Do your job properly, old man," she would often say, and if I took even a brief break, she would yell at me, "Don't slack off." Her yells reverberated through the sales department every day, and she handled other staff members in the same manner. I was clutching my head in my hands, scared for the sales department's future, because the demon lady manager had woken up early. After a few days, Manager Sarah continued to torment and exacerbated herself. She would make fun of my completed documents and remark, "What an outdated style." Alternatively, she would return them and declare, "I don't like your taste." If she was in a foul mood, "Do it again." Nevertheless, I refused to give up on Manager Sarah. I put all of my attention into my task and made the most of my years of expertise. I demonstrated my expertise by meeting her requests and avoiding any little errors, which left her unable to provide directions and clearly unhappy. After a few more days, I was working as usual when Manager Sarah gave me an urgent assignment out of the blue. It appeared like a different employee was working on it, but she chose to give it to me since she couldn't finish it in time. "The deadline is tomorrow, so make sure it's finished by then," she urged, her frustration evident in her tone. "You're supposedly capable, despite your appearances, so you can do it, right?" I was annoyed by her patronizing tone, but I nodded. I answered, "Sure," giving the urgent assignment top priority. I finished the paperwork the following day and sent it straight to Manager Sarah. With a sense of relief, I went back to my other tasks after the paperwork were authorized. When I got at work the following morning as usual, Manager Sarah, who was already there, came storming toward me, her countenance enraged. She thrust the paperwork in front of me, holding the ones I turned in yesterday. "Look," she said, her voice brimming with rage. "What are the documents that you created yesterday? Full of errors." The client became irate and demanded, "What are you doing?" when I emailed them to them. Manager Sarah apparently forwarded the paperwork to the client right away after I finished them. However, she got reprimanded early this morning after receiving a call pointing out the mistakes. Despite being shook, I looked over the paper she threw at me. As expected, there were sections where the client's expectations were not fulfilled, and the text and graphs were difficult to understand. I was not the first employee to work on those portions, though. Someone else handled them. This input should ideally go to that employee, yet Manager Sarah reprimands harshly and arbitrarily. I made the decision to accept responsibility now and bring up the problems later. I braced myself and gave Manager Sarah a heartfelt apology. She immediately began to smirk and barraged him with insults. "You're unable of even managing this basic task? You truly lack competence. Pointless. Redo it by today at 12 o'clock. I'll put you next to the window if you aggravate me once more." I grumbled to myself when I heard Manager Sarah's remarks. Why must I receive such a severe reprimand? Manager Sarah had, after all, checked and approved the final documents. Is it not absurd that she is blaming me alone since she was also blind to the errors? I was able to handle the circumstance even though I suppressed my annoyance to keep from expressing it. Manager Sarah was relieved and in a better mood when she got back to her desk. I let out a long breath and quickly went to work recreating the documents. I completed the documents just before noon and went on to the other things I had already set aside, intending to have them verified thoroughly this time. I was stranded in the department for several days, putting in late hours, which led to tiredness and eventually decreased productivity. But I persisted, and a few days later, I relieved myself while finishing the last few assignments. I thought, I haven't been on a sales round in a while, and following the morning meeting I got ready. Manager Sarah abruptly appeared in front of me and started holding a piece of paper as I was ready to leave the department. "Robert, you're fired," she sternly declared. "Working as of this month. You were so close to retiring, so it's unfortunate, isn't it?" I accepted the slip of paper from Manager Sarah, completely bewildered. The document bore the president's seal firmly stamped on it and read "Dismissal Notice" in huge letters. The office was in disarray, and the nearby employees who had heard could not conceal their shock either. "Why am I being fired?" Perplexed, I asked. Her boasting started. "Why?" "Of course, because you're completely incompetent. I informed the president about the recent occurrences and your actions. Though he did so regretfully, he chose to fire you." She clarified that she had enraged the client by alerting the president to the errors in the paperwork I had turned in. She also said that I had been unmotivated and that I had become weary from working overtime, which had decreased my efficiency. The president took her word for it and chose to terminate me after considering her arguments. Despite my 40 years of committed service and achievements to the company, he trusted Manager Sarah, who was newly appointed, more than me. I hung my head in amazement as I glanced at the notice of dismissal. Manager Sarah persisted in taunting me, as if she found my sadness funny. "Getting rid of someone as useless as you makes me feel completely relieved. Pack up and head out. I made arrangements for you to use the remaining vacation days beginning today." "Incompetence destroys the business," she remarked, dismissively sweeping her hand as though chasing an insect away. That was when all the frustrations I'd been stuffing down started to boil. Trying not to lose my cool, I took the dismissal in stride. "I appreciate the learning experience," I replied. "I'll head out right away. Farewell." I immediately began collecting my belongings in front of Manager Sarah after that. When I was ready, I hurried out of the sales office and bid farewell to the department staff. She continued to smile smugly the entire time, but I ignored her as I walked out of the business. I made a secret vow to do retribution when I returned home. It had been 2 weeks since I was let go by the company. I had been attempting to recover from all the stress of work by taking it easy at home. I was drinking coffee and turning on the TV to watch a movie when I noticed something on the news. It concerned the shareholders' meeting that Johnson Holdings, Fine Beverage Co.'s parent firm, was having today to report on a number of issues. Known for managing a number of beverage producers, Johnson Holdings is a large, well-known company that has recently improved its performance by purchasing competitors. I turned the channel and began watching a movie repeat, thinking nothing of it. My phone rang unexpectedly just as I was about to take a break and head out to eat after viewing 2 movies. I answered even though it was an unknown number since I felt like I knew who it was. It was Manager Sarah, just as I had suspected. "What is happening? You took action, didn't you?" She spat vehemently. She was so enraged and upset that she ignored my correction and began outlining the circumstances herself. Today, Manager Sarah was present at the shareholders' meeting when she heard the Johnson Holdings representatives report. Midway through, they particularly addressed Manager Sarah and announced her firing, shifting the conversation to Fine Beverage Co. "Why are you calling me about this?" I inquired on purpose. Angrily, Manager Sarah went right to the point. "Avoid being a moron. David Johnson, your son, is the Johnson Holdings representative." "I know because I overheard him admit it to himself." "Oh, you found out," I mumbled, acknowledging that she was correct. "Yes, my son was the Johnson Holdings agent, and I was the one who pushed for her termination. After graduating from college, David and his pals launched a modest beverage firm, motivated by my enthusiasm of my profession. He had a remarkable ability for handling sales, attracting clients, and creating well-liked products and aggressively marketing them. The company surprised everyone with its early success as it evolved into a huge corporation. For a while, it even became a popular issue on television. David kept building his company quickly, starting a number of affiliated businesses and turning the main office into a holding company. He had been boosting his earnings lately by acquiring competitors' businesses and absorbing them into his own. David had spoken with me directly a few months prior to manager Sarah's relocation regarding the acquisition of Fine Beverage Co. "Dad, sales for your company are doing fairly well. I would adore for our business to purchase it. How do you feel?" I was totally in favor of his suggestion. David made the decision to move through with the acquisition right away, and Fine Beverage Co. joined Johnson Holdings as a subsidiary a month later with the approval of the president at the time. I had to put up with manager Sarah's incessant taunts and insults after her appointment, and every time I became frustrated, I would always vent to David. I clarified that the other staff members were working in terror and were receiving the same treatment. David promised to take care of it right away. I told David what had transpired over the phone the day I got fired. I described how the president had betrayed me and how manager Sarah had set me up. David felt incensed, as though it were his own experience. "The company is excellent, but with such staff and a president, things will take a serious turn for the worse in the near future. I'll get started right away." Viewing the matter gravely, David headed straight to Fine Beverage Co. When he questioned the president about my termination, the president acknowledged that Sarah influenced my decision. It seems like manager Sarah used her influence to make the president regret his choice ever since. David declared that he will bring up the matter at the upcoming shareholders' meeting. But the president said he truly felt bad about unfairly dismissing me and that he would quietly step down the next day. Sarah's voice got even louder when I told her all of this. "Writing a story on me? That is a dishonest ploy. Furthermore, why am I the one being let go? I simply asked the president to terminate you and offered some harsh advice. Is this the right course of action?" the spokesman made reference to. I was uneasy about manager Sarah's threats, even though they persisted. "You haven't heard the other reasons why you were fired, so hold on. You weren't let go for that alone," she shot out, irrationally. "What?" I pretended to be ignorant. It appeared that manager Sarah had abruptly left the shareholders' meeting and headed back to the sales division. I told her the truth about why she was fired, which David ought to have told her. "Manager Sarah, it appears that you have been selling confidential company information. I learned this knowledge from a competitor's staff member." As soon as I heard it, I was astounded. Pump. Sarah, the manager, appeared noticeably shaken. "I recently was fired, so a buddy of mine who works for a competitor gave me a drink to cheer me up." My friend replied to me venting about manager Sarah by starting to tell me a story. "My colleague and that manager Sarah you mentioned might be meeting to exchange company information. My acquaintance claims that one night, while working late by himself, a coworker who had returned to pick up something asked for his advice. The colleague gave the explanation that he had been approached by Sarah, a woman from a competing company, who wanted to share corporate information. They began exchanging information when he was convinced to change his mind at first. Their relationship developed over time to involve financial transactions, which put them in a position from which they could not withdraw. They wouldn't be fired if the company found out they were exchanging information. When they were alone, the colleague confided in my pal because they felt imprisoned. As soon as I heard this, I knew it had to be manager Sarah, so I enlisted the assistance of my friend and his colleague to help collect proof. After examining the captured images and audio, it became evident that she was the one responsible. On the day I was fired, I had told David about all of this. I take it that the shareholders' meeting is still going on. David is undoubtedly in the middle of telling everyone there about all of your transgressions. I continued, partially in an attempt to frighten her. I also handed over the photo and audio evidence, so by now, everyone is probably desperately searching for you. Sarah, the manager, was clearly rattled. David was supposed to confront her and reveal her wrongdoings to the public following the shareholders' meeting. But she couldn't take the mood and her rage at me after learning who David was, and that he had dismissed her, so she stormed out in the middle. Nevertheless, her absence had little effect on the plan. The meeting was obviously coming to an end given the time, and the directors were probably hoping she would grasp the problem. Manager Sarah spoke in a pleasant, enticing tone just as I was grinning with satisfaction. "Hey, Robert, could you kindly testify over the phone that the representative's claims at the shareholders' meeting were all lies in case the directors come seeking for me? I promise to make it worthwhile for you." My spine tingled at her blatant attempt at bribery. I was unaffected by her manipulation of the president and my friend's colleague, who she had probably done in the same way. "You've been made fun of so much, and now you want a favor? Perhaps you've used that strategy previously, but not this time. Is that how you gained the respect as a capable woman?" I teased her back. "That's not true." Manager Sarah angrily cried out in response. "My advancement has always been based solely on my own abilities. Please don't undervalue me just because you're an elderly man who was let go." Her location may have been revealed by her loud voice because voices, presumably the directors, could be heard behind her. "Manager Sarah, please come right now to the president's office. The information trading issue that was brought up at the shareholders' meeting has to be discussed. Johnson, the president, is also in wait." Manager Sarah tried valiantly to establish she was innocent despite her panic. She started enforcing the plan that she had earlier presented to me. "Right now, I'm speaking with the informant, Robert, on the phone. He claims that every piece of information about me is false. He's going to testify immediately, so pay close attention." She puts her phone on speaker and adjusts the level so that the entire department can hear me. "You know what to do now, Robert, don't you? Testify as we already discussed." I feel like I'm being asked to testify that everything was a lie by Manager Sarah. Who will heed such orders? I just opened up and started talking. Yes, everything of President Johnson's remarks during the shareholders' meeting are accurate. I personally gathered the evidence, thus there are no errors. Manager Sarah erupted in a fit of rage following my testimony. "What are you saying? It isn't what we decided upon. Is it impossible for you to do as your manager says? Attest, you worthless moron, that it was a falsehood. You're not my manager anymore, and there was never an arrangement to testify conveniently. Regarding being ineffective, I think I've been fairly successful at cornering you in this way. How do you feel?" She let out another frustrated scream as I quickly reacted. After hearing my evidence and Manager Sarah's harsh comments, the executives quickly put Manager Sarah under restraint, escorted her to the president's office, and ended the call. I let the call end, took a big breath, and headed outside to eat the dinner I had been missing. Later on, I found out that David and the executives had questioned Manager Sarah in depth over her wrongdoings, but she had adamantly denied all of them. Since nothing came of this, David interviewed the person who was directly involved, my friend's colleague, and carried out an internal investigation. Manager Sarah had been spotted by a few staff members meeting with my friend's colleague. The coworker also admitted everything, which prompted criminal complaints from both businesses. After being detained for embezzlement, Manager Sarah and the colleague of my buddy were sentenced to prison. The coworker was dismissed while incarcerated, was sued for damages, and is currently working a part-time job to pay off his debts over time. In a similar vein, Manager Sarah lost her job and was hit with a big damages suit. After her release, she made an effort to find a new employment, but she was unsuccessful because of the scandal's extensive media publicity. She tried to start taking on night jobs in an effort to pay off her debt more rapidly, but she was turned down everywhere because of her advanced age. She was almost 50. In the end, she took a job as a cashier at a restaurant at night and a supermarket by day. But the scandal was well known even there. Narratives about her using seduction to trade information, verbally assaulting staff, and being firmly brought down by a subordinate she had denigrated went viral. This must have been a living misery for a proud person like Sarah, yet she was unable to give up. She put up with it since she had to pay back her loan as quickly as possible, and she still works hard now. Regarding myself, David set up my return to the company following Sarah's incarceration, and I worked there until my retirement. It was also determined that I would replace Sarah as manager, and I'm currently trying my hardest to guide the staff. Johnson Holdings appointed a new female president to fill the void left by the outgoing president. The newly appointed president is very skilled and genuinely concerned for the staff. She will, in my opinion, greatly expand Finding Beverage Co. I want to help the company behind the scenes even if I won't be able to personally witness its progress because I'll be retiring in a few years. I plan to use my remaining time to make as big of an impact as I can for the benefit of the firm and the future generation.